For too long, I think digital has been seen as a tech solution, and it's been understood by IT specialists. And I wanted to really get it beyond that into the mainstream of leadership, of understanding what digital could do as a tool to improve public services, to have them focused on the user. That for me is the key. And there are two reasons for that, really. One is I think people's expectations of service delivery are now set by their interactions with the private sector, with the FANGs. So you go onto Amazon or Netflix or Google, and you have a end-to-end digitized service which is designed very well around your needs. You then have an experience accessing a public service, and it's a very different experience. So there are a couple of personal experiences I had which wound me up, really, that got me thinking about this agenda. When I used to take my son to see a consultant, and to take him out to school, it was a difficult car journey, and I said, well, why can't we just do this on Skype? And I was told, you can't do that, not allowed, against the rules, don't have the capability to do it, all very nervous. Well, that just didn't make sense. And that was just 3-4 years ago. I simply went to see a GP, and had to have a photograph taken of something. I can't remember what it was now, some mole or something, nothing terribly exciting. And they said I had to come back to make a fresh appointment with the GP because only the GP could take the photo. So I said, well, why can't I just WhatsApp a picture to you? And I was told couldn't do that, security concerns. I pointed out that MI5 aren't able to hack WhatsApp, but that clearly wasn't good enough. Similarly, then when Babylon came along, and they were, if you were able to afford it, you could see a doctor and book an appointment all very simply. You could access your patient notes. You could send a picture of what you were concerned about. You could replay it back. There just wasn't an equivalent at that time in the public services. And I just thought, well, if we allow this to continue, if we allow this disconnect between a citizen's experience of accessing services in the modern world compared to trying to get some new blue bags from the council office, or trying to get register for free school meals, or trying to get a library card, or book swimming lessons. These were nightmare experiences. And if we allow that to happen, we are creating a space where public services will start to lose their value for people, because people will just migrate to a private sector alternative. So from a social justice and a public service values point of view, I just felt the public sector in particular needed to raise its game, and it just did not have either the internal skills or the dynamism that was pushing this forward at a leadership level to make that happen. So that was my initial experience of this, and then through working with Sally and Victoria and others in an expert panel that was created before I became a minister, I developed a greater understanding about user design, about the skills needed, about digital transformation squads, and how all these things that Spotify use, how can we put them to work to make the bins better in Blaenau Gwent? And that's what we've been able to start to do through the creation of the Centre for Digital Public Services. And of course, this isn't just a public sector problem, it's a private sector problem too. Our SME base in Wales is the largest part of our economy, and is on the whole some way off being where it needs to be for this agenda. So that for me was the policy driver. Once you obviously start to explore that, then the whole possibility of skills, of jobs that are not yet invented, open up. And through looking at the situation we face, the digital disruption we face from AI and the development of the fourth industrial revolution, there's a huge displacement that's going to take if we do not act, if we are simply passive. And by taking a step ourselves, some control here, we can start to create jobs, careers, skills for people in this space, which takes forward both our public services and opens up career opportunities for people at all stages in their life in Wales. So I think this is a vital agenda. I'm really pleased with the progress we've made in the last a couple of years. And I think there is now the creation of a movement for change developing, an excitement, a crackle across the ecosystem to take this agenda forward. And I'm very pleased with Glyn Jones in place as a new Chief Digital Officer in Sam Hall now for local government, and soon I hope a Chief Digital Officer for the NHS in Wales, alongside Sally's role as Chief Executive of the Centre. a new digital strategy that we'll be launching next month, which has been crowdsourced with a genuine attempt to make it better through getting people's ideas and people's criticism. And then by creating then this leadership, this collective leadership, where we can develop digital standards, we can look at things like spend controls and spreading best practice, and making leaders of all organizations realize, just as they need to understand procurement or how the bins work or how the plumbing works, they also need to understand how digital works. This is not a backroom function. This has to be a boardroom function, because this is essential for creating services that meet the needs of our citizens. Diolch.
Sorry, Lee, having problems getting off mute then. Someone had to do it, didn't they? It was me this afternoon. Thank you very much, Lee. Glyn, could I ask you to pick up from here, please?
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. Victoria, and thanks, Deputy Minister, for those introductory words. Mae'n ddarfod yma heddiw am y webinar am y tro gyntaf. Thanks. Good to be here today for the first time at one of the CDPS webinars. I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the digital strategy that the Deputy Minister just alluded to. Talk about how we got to where we are now, what happens next, and so on. So December the 1st, we started crowdsourcing a new digital strategy for Wales. We did this through a series of blogs over the past few weeks, which I'm sure many of you will have seen and hopefully responded to. And this was a genuine attempt, as the Minister said, to really co-produce a strategy. So we put out some blogs with some ideas of a vision and what we wanted to achieve, and we really wanted people to contribute to tell us whether we were doing the right things, what were we missing, and so on. Strategy was set around these 6 missions. At the heart of it, this vision of improving quality of life, sustainability and economic growth with user-centred public services, supported by that effective leadership and the culture of innovation and collaboration the Deputy Minister has just alluded to. But to support that, as the Minister's just spoken about, we'll achieve better public services by driving up the skills, making sure people can connect to online services and tackle digital inclusion, and all of that will enable us to deliver better digital services and grow the economy. So 6 missions. I'm just going to talk you through each of them very quickly. There's a lot more information online through the blogs, and I'm sure all that material is available to you, but we didn't really want to bombard you with hundreds of words today. But the first mission we blogged on was around this point around digital services, how we can deliver and modernise services as the Minister has outlined. And there's lots of actions already in place on this one. The very fact that we're all here today in a webinar hosted by the Centre for Digital Public Services highlights the investment we've made in the centre over the past year, and in the draft budget, Minister's committed to investing in the centre next year to the tune of £4.9 million. And Sally's going to talk a lot more about the centre in a bit. And the centre have already achieved a lot, and they've started to set out digital standards, and looking at training and leadership and so on. So that's the first mission. The second mission is about economic growth, productivity, and driving forward economic growth, productivity and resilience by embracing and exploiting digital innovation. So in 2019, we had a report from Professor Philip Brown on the future of work and what this might mean for the Welsh economy. And through this mission, we're trying to take forward some of the recommendations of the Brown Review, but also some wider thinking around the economy. The Deputy Minister made a statement in the autumn about how we'll transition to different ways of working once we're out of the pandemic, in terms of remote working hubs and so on. But within here is also things around our procurement practices and how we can support people in that. Next slide, please, Victoria. The third mission was about data and collaboration, and for those of you who know, I used to be the chief statistician, so this mission is very close to my heart, and I've seen over the years how we have some really great data assets in Wales, but we could do so much more with it if we shared it and collaborated with each other to set collaborative platforms that we could use this data to stop people providing the same information twice to public services, to improve the decision making made by public services by using data effectively, and by setting a culture of openness and transparency in our data. So that mission is all about driving forward the use of data for the good of the citizen. Thanks, Victoria. Digital inclusion, already mentioned this. So our digital inclusion mission builds on the blueprint we put out in December around a framework for digital inclusion, looking at how we can look at the motivation, access, skills and confidence to engage with this digital world, particularly taking into account of the sort of shift we've seen in digital inclusion issues over the last year, where we've seen things like data poverty and access to multiple devices within a household become issues on top of the issues we already knew about in terms of confidence, skills and internet access. Thanks, Victoria. And obviously underneath all this, we have to be able to connect to our digital services. So we had a mission on digital connectivity to ensure that services are supported by fast and reliable infrastructure. And this mission discusses how we want to use that relationship with the UK government, who are responsible for telecommunications, to make sure that we're trying to address those gaps in digital connectivity, but also to take forward the really successful programs we have at the moment. Thank you. And finally, mission 6, digital skills. So across all of this, the skills of the population to use digital services and to use digital, but also the skills of our workforce. So Lee mentioned the video consultation. How are we making sure the medical staff have got the skills and competence they need to run video consultations? How are we equipping teachers to become more competent in digital learning? But also, how are we making sure the young people are coming out of school with the digital competence they need? So quite a lot in that digital skills mission. Thanks, Victoria. So we think the process has been quite a success. People seem to have welcomed it. We've had a large number of blog views relative to most of our other digital blogs. We've had a good number of online responses to the strategy and more coming in. We've also held a large number of engagement events with Sally, myself and others going out to talk to lots of people. And we're bringing all that information together now, as the Deputy Minister said, with the aim of launching a final strategy before the election next month. Kind of things we're hearing: general positivity about our approach, about the approach for user-centered public services, and the ambition we're setting. But there are some common themes of things that people are concerned of, barriers and issues we need to think about. Digital skills being one of them. It's not just about providing technology. We need to provide that training and support to people. We need to look at digital inclusion across all demographics, not just older people, not just particular groups. So that's really important. That's coming through as a really strong theme, as well as this issue of digital connectivity and the need for universal access. So we're taking all that into account over the next few weeks and trying to get a digital final strategy out there. However, that will be the start of the next phase, and we want to build on the engagement we've been doing so far and have more of those conversations. Finally, from me, the next step of this will be to deliver a delivery plan alongside the strategy. And that's something we're working really closely with the centre, but also these other people on the screen. So the Deputy Minister spoke about this leadership ecosystem we're developing. Sally as Chief Executive of the Centre, myself in Welsh Government, Sam Hall, the local government CDO, and a CDO for Health in Future. That isn't Ivan Evans, but Ivan at the moment is doing a really great job as Director of Digital Health in Welsh Government and driving forward this digital transformation agenda. All of us are working together to bring this delivery plan and the strategy together to make sure it works across all public sector. And there's some really good examples of how we're already doing this. And just this afternoon, picking up the Minister's point about SMEs, we've been having an email chain between us all for how we can work together to set out a playbook on how we get SMEs in to support the public sector. Sally and I were talking to a bunch of sponsor bodies this afternoon about transition back in terms of workplace, but also how they will be, how they should transform their public services to become more user-centered. So we're already doing a lot of this collaboration, and we'll be building on that next year. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Glyn. Sally, over to you.
Done it again. I've literally been doing this all day. So right, back in the room. So hello everyone, Sally Meecham, Interim Chief Exec for the CDPS. I'm going to really concentrate on what we've delivered in the past few months and what plans we have for delivery going forward. So hopefully you're all comfortable enough to know who we are. We've been set up as an arm's length body to support the design and delivery of digital public services that are user-led. All this on our website. And also, I'm going to run through this quite quickly, but there will be, we will post a report that we have done for ministers, a 4-page report it goes into more detail about delivery. So it is really important that when we're using the word strategy, we also map that to delivery as well. So we started in June, we finished our alpha phase in March, but since June we have looked at how do we address some of the concerns and barriers of digital transformation in Wales. One of them was through looking at, which Lee has talked about, deploying an expert squad. So we went to market, got a group of very, very good digital experts. We then went and worked with Blaen y Gwent, Neath Port Talbot and Torfaen, and obviously we were part of that group to look at what a common problem was across those 3 organisations, and how can we use agile methodology and user-centred design to help improve a service, and the service that was agreed was the access to adult social care, which had common problems across 3 organisations. There was, I think, a sense at the beginning that there were more differences than commonality across the 3 organisations, but over the past few months working together, they realised that there is a lot of commonality, and there's been some extremely excellent work that's been done in those local authorities. But what's been really important is the skills growth of the people who have been working on those services, and the skills transfer that we've had from those expert squads. And that's really a real, not apart from just showing how to deliver in an agile way, it's really critical that we build in skills transfer to the people that we're working with. So that's got to a point where we have a minimum viable product, and we'll now be working with those same organisations to take it into beta. And what's really important about the beta phase is not just about what does it look like for the user of that service, but how do we work with the organisation to ensure that they're in the right shape to be able to deliver that service, to continuously improve that service, have the right skills and capability to work on that service, and the right funding in place, etc. So that's just an example that we have done in this alpha phase, but we will be looking to amplify that work and look for new opportunities in 21-22. We're focused on, just built on this success of the first squad. It's really important. When we first started this, we had a kind of a remit of what we should do, but it had a huge response the start of the centre, and we have had lots of people asking us to help them in all different ways, and we have worked with additional organisations around doing agile delivery, around procurement, around digital democracy, and working with the local government transformation fund. So we're already starting to grow out from just the one exemplar, and we'll be looking to do a lot more. Focus on skills and capability, really huge, came out of discovery and our conversations. We don't have the types of roles that we really should have, the digital data and technology types of roles, the user experience, the content design, etc. There are hardly any in the Welsh public sector that we've found, and there certainly isn't the plans to kind of bring those types of roles in and then start to look at workforce planning in the future, and which is critical, because we're already there. We're already starting to deliver digital services. People are expecting and have to get their services delivered digitally, and we need to make sure that not only do we have the right skills and capability now, but also we are building a pipeline of people to come and work in the public sector, Welsh public sector. So a really big thing that's come out of the discovery phase and we're working on is a set of common standards. So we want to make sure that our services are simple, easy to use, user-led, use data appropriately, and all those things. Government Digital Service has a service standard, and so does the Scottish Government and Northern Ireland. Ours is quite similar because it's basically user-focused, but in Wales we're looking at making sure that we design and deliver bilingual services, making sure that we put Welsh culture and language in the forefront of the services we design, but obviously we also need to be looking at multilingual services as well. But that's all part of how do we meet the user need. shared knowledge. We're looking at how people wanted to know how they can co-create, collaborate, share information. And so we're working in this alpha phase, so looking at what do the tools look like, how do we attract people to come and share information. And it's already started to work really well on the sort of building communities. I mean, the first community we've looked at is the Welsh language community, but also we are looking at other groups that we can work with, and working in the open to shape those common set of service standards. We'll be looking at technology standards as well to create them so they meet the needs for the people of Wales. And working in the open, a huge amount of work around blogging, these knowledge sharing sessions. We want to be as transparent as possible. We want to make sure that there's a supplier community, everybody knows kind of what's coming up and how we can work together. So if we go to the next slide, please. So we have funding, we have 4.9 million, which is excellent. It shows that the ministers are serious about this, that it's a good amount of money. It's a good amount of money for a startup, to be sure. And we will be, as I say, the line there from Lee, and a big important part of this is in the culture of Welsh Public Services. How are we going to work with organisations to bring a culture of openness, of transparency, of agility, and agile, capital A and lowercase a. So what we're currently doing right now is looking at the plan for 21-22, and that is around the skills and capability. What's our role with regards to education, etc. We're looking at who can we work with to find more exemplars to deliver and show what good agile delivery looks like in service design. Continue working on the hub and making sure that we can work together. But there's other things as well, like a playbook for procurement, a playbook for recruitment, different bits that we get involved with to help support the design and delivery of digital public services. So next slide, please. So what I'm sort of saying is that we're in delivery mode. I can crap on for ages talking about digital and talk about this, that and the other and have all these slides, but actually we need to show what we're actually doing. Obviously I'm not crapping on, I'm being very sensible, but it's better to show the thing. We really need to, and through those blogs we really do show what it actually means for individuals, what it means for the organisation, and what the impact is, and how what troubles are. So it's really important that we are delivering to make sure that we are showing what we can do and learning from that delivery in Wales. So our area that we're specifically focused on, although obviously we'll support the whole of the strategy for Wales, is around digital services. If we just go to the next one, please. So you can look at this and take your eyes off it. This is not the right plan. This is us trying to work out, as I said, for 21-22 and beyond, what is it we need to do now? What is it we're going to do next? We know we need to do a landscape review, for example, a baseline review of what's out there, what services are out there, etc. But we're currently looking at, right at this moment as a team, and bringing in people and talking to people about what our plans look like going forward, and how we can make sure that we can help in the delivery of the national digital strategy for Wales. Next slide, please. And yeah, so we're keeping on delivering, keeping the focus. We have an advisory panel and apprentice panel that are excellent and really help us shape our plans and our thoughts and how we deliver. And I think the point here is, please get in contact, have a look at our website, get engaged, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.
Thank you, Sally. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I can see people as well. That gives us time now for questions. I can see Lee still with us at the moment, but I don't know how long you're going to be with us, Lee. For any questions anyone might have. Is there anything you wanted to add, having listened to Sally and Glyn at this stage?
No, I've only got a couple of minutes for to start voting, so nothing to add, but happy to take part in the question if I can.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. So if anyone would like to put their hand up, you'll jump to the top of our screen and we can ask you to unmute to ask any questions. Whilst people are thinking about that, one of the things that I think Glyn and Sally came across quite strongly there is the fact that there's a lot of interest in this. There's a lot of people asking for support. You talked about collaboration, you talked about prioritisation. Can you expand a little bit on how that's actually going to work to make sure we're delivering the right stuff? Or Lee, sorry, as well, if you've got any thoughts on that, please feel free to.
I think for us, I think we'll be, as I say, we need to get the work now and get some delivery plans in place, but the baseline and review will really help us really understand and shape what the priorities are for Wales, where are the services that need the most help, and kind of what the volumes are, what's the kind of the burning platforms and the low hanging fruit. But at the moment we need to get that gather and get that data to be able to make intelligent decisions on the kind of future delivery. But in the meantime, we're not stopping, we're going to keep delivering things, but as we move forward we'll have more data and intelligence to make more intelligent decisions.
To me, it's oh, go on, Dr.
I was just going to add, you know, this is a major culture change. So this is ambitious stuff, and that's what's so exciting about it. And I think the way that Sally and the team have gone about it is very astute, because by doing a discovery phase first of all, demonstrating a need for this establishment of the centre, established an evidence base that made it hard to argue with, and also in having those conversations and going through that research, created an awareness amongst the people who are being interviewed and the chief executives and so on. And that in itself added to the dynamic for change. And that's once you see the update that Sally's just done recently for ministers, I think it's really impressive what's been done in the time available. And that's why I was able to make the case for such a big budget settlement next year. You know, there's a genuine appetite for this. And I think there's a real sense, as I said, of an alliance for change. But it's, you know, it's not going to be easy. This is ambitious, and there's all sorts of points of friction and resistance we'll have to come across. But I think success will create its own momentum here, which is why it's so important. You know, I've got an election very soon, but so, you know, this is out of my hands now, really. The ball has been passed over to the centre. You've got a year to demonstrate that this budget is good money spent, and it needs more. And that's really, so there's a year to demonstrate the value of this agenda, and through collaboration and service change, we can improve people's lives. But, you know, that's a big challenge, but it's absolutely doable.
Thank you, Lee. And yeah, you're absolutely right. None of this stuff's easy. We've talked before about this. I know I'm supposed to be facilitating, not giving views here, but it's one that for me is really important, that we understand that this is going to be difficult. It's not doing the easy stuff, it's doing the hard stuff. And actually it's by working together across the different areas in the public sector in Wales that we're actually going to make a difference. So it's been great to see some of that starting to come together. It's been particularly impressive, I think, to see how the 3 local authorities working together on our first squad have really learnt themselves about what's happening and some of the differences it can make to the way that the services are being designed with that user in need. And they've struggled with some of it. They've said themselves it's been challenging, but they're now starting to do some of that thinking for themselves, and they're starting to do the challenging and asking the questions within their organisations and others. And that's where I think we're going to see the real success coming out of this. Okay, have we got any other questions coming up? It's a quiet lot. We don't normally get a quiet lot on these. Oh, Edwina, I think I can see there. Okay, if you can unmute yourself, Edwina.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Go for it.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. Thanks for the presentations. I'm super excited by the work of the centre. I think it's fantastic. I think I work for Community Housing Nghymru, so we represent housing associations. So we're not public sector, but we're a sector that's geared up and you know, provide a huge amount of public services to 10% of the Welsh population. So really, it's just thinking about how we can get involved and what support there might be for us to be able to help with this agenda, because it's something that we're chomping at the bit to do and to help.
So Edwina, when we're in discovery phase, we found some of the most enthusiastic and kind of on the ball lot were the housing lot. So we had great conversations with you, and definitely want to continue those, because it is to say it is the Welsh public sector, but it's the third sector, it's the housing. We need to make sure that we're joining this up, because your journey will come from, you know, if I'm doing a user journey, I might be on your site, I might go to a local authority site, I might go to another site, and we need to make sure that people don't fall down the cracks in between, because that's really bad public service and we don't want that. So yeah, let's meet up, be great.
Thanks, Ed. Got Matthew Lloyd there. Matthew, if you could unmute yourself. And
hi, yeah, same, really excited about the agenda. I've just moved from digital inclusion, Digital Communities Wales, into the NHS. What a difference that's been. It's been really interesting transition to see that. And I've just actually been doing a quick bit of work on the wards here in one of our hospitals. I won't say which one, but it's been interesting to see that, again, like it's been picked up, it's not necessarily the equipment and the devices that are the issue that I'm finding. It's very much the awareness and the disconnect I feel between the digital informatics or digital people and what is actually required on the ground by the patients and by the staff. There's a big disconnect there, I feel, and that's an important point, I think, for us to focus on. For us to have any success with this, we need to make sure that that disconnect and that distance, I feel, between the actual reality, like Lee was talking about, of making a difference to people's lives, and what is actually possible sometimes within departments and within strategy documents sometimes as well. We need to definitely work on that difference and that distance between those two things.
Yeah, I think you've been a very big supporter, haven't you, Matthew, of the centre, and I really appreciate it. And it'd be probably good to have a catch up. So I don't think we've met. It'd be good to talk about your new role. Yeah,
that'd be great. Thanks, Ali.
And I think, Matthew, some of the things you're there, perhaps maybe Glyn can pick up on a little bit, or Lee, if he's still around with us. That bit you're saying about taking a strategy and turning it into delivery, because actually that's what matters. Any thoughts on that, Lee or Glyn?
Yeah, so I see the Deputy Minister has to go, so bye, Lee.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, so I'm really clear, and I know Lee would be if he was to hear as well, that the strategy is one thing. This is about delivery, and I want to be able to look back in a year's time and think, right, these are the actions we took as a result of that strategy. So the consultation has really helped in us getting a sign up, excitement, people coming along with a vision, and people like Sally and the Minister talking really passionately about this. What we want to do now over the next few weeks is to focus on that delivery plan and think about the actions we can take now, the actions we can take in a year or two, and the things that we need to consider for the long term. Some of this won't happen overnight. There are some big stuff in there. I spoke about the data agenda. That's a huge agenda. We're not going to, in a year, have a fully integrated data platform across the public sector, but what things can we put in place over the next year to help us move towards there and have us all moving in the same direction? And a really important bit of this is that collaboration across the CDO ecosystem, so that in terms of, Matthew, your agenda there, that we're driving forward that sense of user citizen-centered design into all bits of this, and that the digital strategy for health, which I know it will be coming down the road this year, and the CDO for health, that have the same overarching ambition as the digital strategy for Wales, so that we're all working together. So as a citizen, you'll get you know what kind of service you should be expecting, whichever part of the system you're using.
Thank you, Glyn. Tim Daly, I think you're around somewhere. If you can unmute yourself, it might be helpful just to explain some of the work that you're doing alongside Welsh Government to start looking at the 6 missions, what those action plans that Glyn was just mentioning there, but actually what some of those dependencies across them are going to look like to make sure that we are joined up a bit. Are you about, Tim?
Yeah. So just as you say, Victoria, we're working across all the different policy teams with Glyn's team, so we're working seamlessly as they described earlier, to make sure that the services come first and the outcomes that we're looking for across there, rather than particular policy silos, that would be it skills or education or whatever. Actually, when you're a user, your interaction flows across that. And so we've been starting to have those workshops and really putting the detail into the delivery plan that enables people to have tangible outcomes and action plans against that, so they can see what we're actually doing to make that strategy come to life.
And I think our plans as well, back in that whole idea of working out loud and being open, is to make sure people can see those plans, but actually to how we're progressing against them and what difference is actually being made. Thank you, Tim. Any more questions out there? Remember, if you put your hand up, you'll pop to the top of the screen and we can see who's asking questions, or you can pop it in the chat if you would prefer not to. Oh, sorry, my glasses on to see that one. It's a question from James. James, did you want to ask that yourself on the call? It's a loaded question, isn't it? Phoebe's got a hand up now.
Yes, yeah, I can do. Yeah, I mean, it was you know, for me, I've been working in the private sector and interfacing with Welsh government quite frequently over the last. Oh, my camera's, that's a bit better. Over the last few years, and I suppose it's looking at the spend across the whole of the public sector across the UK. Wales has been a little bit, well, not spent as much as some of the other areas of the UK, really, and it's just to find out really whether, you know, there's a similar sort of commitment. You know, it was a very large announcement by Scottish government sort of yesterday or earlier this week, and it would be great to see if Welsh Gov have got the similar sort of clout, really. I guess, especially with the you know, COVID and a lot of the health distraction that we have at the moment, affecting sort of digital public services in general, really.
Thank you. Glyn, do you want to, and Lee's gone, but perhaps you could give a view on that funding, and then Sally, maybe you could pick up on, you know, some of the stuff that Lee touched on really about the centre demonstrating some of this and what comes next. But Glyn, perhaps you could pick up first.
Yeah, it's one you should have asked when the minister was in the room. You know, I think I think, James, just to look at where we come from. We, as Lee said, the last couple of years we really transformed the narrative here in Wales in terms of digital. We have had a minister who's passionate to push forward this agenda. The fact that we're now investing in the Centre for Digital Public Services for the first time, you know, we have an arms length body whose job it is to work with the digital public services on this agenda. I think is a sign of ministerial commitment and enthusiasm for this agenda that we probably haven't seen before. You know, but there are also other pots of money that we need to think about. You know, we have local government digital transformation funds. We have health digital investment funds. We also have investment directly into things like the NHS Wales Informatics Service and soon to be a special health authority for health and social care. So, you know, I used to be a statistician, but I'm not going to argue with you about numbers here because I haven't read the Scottish announcement in detail. But I suppose what I'd say is, you know, we're at a point in time here where digital is being taken seriously by ministers. They're starting to put the investment in. And you know, I think at least if this proves it can be a success over the next year, that can only be good for future investment and future ministers, whoever they may be, over the next 5 years to take into account.
Thanks, Glyn. Sally?
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to showing the thing, demonstrating what we can do, and what using words like impact and measuring success. And we don't always do that, but we really do need to be showing what impact we're making in the organisations across the Welsh public sector, but also broader, to think of Wales as, you know, this bigger ecosystem. We're making sure that what impact are we having on the Future Generations Act, for example? What impact can we have with sort of shaping a kind of more digital type of Welsh language? So a lot of showing that, a lot of demonstrating data over the next year. Scottish digital government, we have Trish Quinn, who's on our advisory panel, and someone I've known for years. They're doing amazing stuff. So, you know, you just wouldn't say no, if you know what I mean. They've got loads, they've got evidence, they've got the data, they've got all the stuff they can prove and say this is what we should be doing. Huge, I mean, really kind of First Minister level support as well. So it goes back to we've been really fortunate to have really good ministerial support, and I really hope that will continue, whatever the government looks like going forward. So it's showing the thing, showing the data, showing the impact. Working with as many people as possible and making sure that we're making the linkages across Wales. I do think that I don't think we're not going to get the money in the next few years. It's just a really weird way of saying it, but you know, we're on a roll. We are doing good stuff, and I'm not worried about that. It's just with regards to planning for 12 months. That's a difficult thing for a new organisation. If we were be able to plan for 3 to 5 years, that would be easier. But we are where we are, and we'll just keep moving forward and working in partnership with the great people and new people.
Thank you, Sally. We've got a couple more questions coming there. Rob Griffiths, you've had your hand up a little while. Apologies. Do you want to?
Hi, yes, sorry. I think this kind of fits into the last question. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah, great. Okay. The thing that's been bugging me for, I mean, I've worked in Wales now since 2004. So despite my name, I'm not Welsh, but I've got a very good appreciation and understanding of the Welsh language and culture now. The thing that really bugs me is, and I'm looking and hoping that the Welsh government and perhaps this organisation would help drive, is the lack of a Welsh voice in terms of voice recognition. The Welsh language isn't understood by AI, and that is a real problem. So it's really difficult to roll out anything which just lets people ask a device, what's my bin day, or whatever it is. And that sort of really bugs me, and I don't know what the answer is. I know when there was no Welsh voice for products like BrowserLoud, which reads out HTML to non-sighted users, that Bangor University did a whole load of work, and that then got embraced and has been rolled out across many products. So it's more that thing. It's been years where it's been talked about where the Welsh government will push people like Google and Alexa to recognise the Welsh voice, and I'm just wondering where that is going.
Thank you very much. Glyn, do you want to pick that up initially? Then Sally, we could perhaps something on the community practice as well might be useful in there. Let's get Glyn first. Thank you.
Yeah, Rob, thanks for the question, and it's a really good point, and one that it is being there's a lot of work going on around it. So we'll put in the link the update on the Welsh Language Technology Action Plan, which talks about a lot of the work we're doing with the universities and trying to influence big tech on some of this stuff. So those conversations are happening, and yeah, appreciate we all want it as quickly as possible, but I think you're absolutely right in terms of that user experience. You know, I'm absolutely right. We need to be providing people with equity in terms of the Welsh language, and what we're just to step back a little bit. We're trying to also push the narrative that Welsh language public services is not just about taking an app and translating it. That we, as part of this whole user-centered design, are understanding the journey of a Welsh speaker from end to end, and what that means for them. And some of that will be, well, it's all well and good you translating a website, you can't use the voice recognition in Welsh. So I think you're absolutely right. I'm completely agreeing with you, but just to be assured, there is a lot going on in terms of the Welsh Technology Action Plan on this, and it's worth having a look at. I'm sure the Welsh Language Technology team would be also happy to have a chat with you. Sorry.
Thank you, Glyn. Sally, you've already mentioned the fact that Welsh language is one of the service standards that we're putting out there, that we want services designed with the Welsh language and culture at the beginning, thinking of it. And I think what Glyn said there is actually right. That's not just about the tech, and it's not just about translating a website. But Sally, perhaps you give a bit of an update of where we're at with that in the community would be helpful.
Yeah, so it's one of the kind of first communities of interest. There'll be others, I think, sort of user researchers and content design, but one of the first ones was started up is the Welsh community of interest. We haven't started up, they were already doing it, but we wanted to see how we can broaden it. They're very passionate and doing some excellent things. So you've got Jeremy Evis with his technology plan, as Glyn's already talked about. But it really is making sure that we are working with organisations to support them in designing bilingual services. I think there's a message to Westminster that needs to be had. I was speaking to Justice the other day who said that they had a team from Westminster come into Wales, and the purpose really was just literally translate an English service into Welsh verbatim, and what happened was that service did not work at all, because actually it was around sort of legal terms and the language they were using and the approach they were using, the culture, the words we just didn't work. So they actually managed to get agreement that we were going to completely and utterly redesign that service. So, and I know someone who's worked in lots of Westminster departments as well, is quite seen as such a burden to have to translate into Welsh. Well, actually, you know, if you're going to deliver your services in Wales, when you think about the Welsh culture and the Welsh people, so that's really critical. So this is kind of as well as, you know, what we're doing here, Rob. But again, as I talk about, we're here to meet the needs of users, and that will go beyond just the Welsh language.
I just want to come back in on that point as well. So the work we're doing with the universities and others will be about developing components and platforms that can be reused. So if we're talking to Ministry of Justice, they don't need to build their own AI bot, because we can draw upon these things that have been done before. So that, you know, that's a really important part of what the Welsh language team are doing. They're working on platforms and infrastructure that can be reused by the public sector and beyond, so businesses can also use them as well.
Thank you, Glyn. Thank you, Rob. And Rob, I don't know whether you were there, but the last one of these last month was on the Welsh language, and that's still available via our site to watch on playback if you're interested and weren't able to make it. There were some interesting conversations in there. I will warn you though, we used a simultaneous translator, and what we found out about doing that is that when Zoom records, it only records in the language that people speak in, so it jumps between Welsh and English all over the place. But if you're bilingual, you won't find that an issue at all. But just to give you the heads up, that's there. Thank you. Steve Dimmock. Steve, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Diolch fawr am y cyflwyniadau. We wedi mwynhau. Diolch am trefnu'r session. Thanks very much for the presentations. Really enjoyed them. Thanks for setting up the session. I guess for me, it's exciting to hear that you're looking to support and collaborate with SMEs in the work that's being undertaken. And so I guess, you know, from someone who's running a bilingual digital startup in Wales, keen to understand what you look for in those organizations. What are the traits, what are the capabilities that Glyn and Sally, anyone else who wants to pitch in, you know, what are you looking for from us, and how can we best, I don't want to say tick those boxes, but how can we best appeal?
Thank you. I think it's a good question around SMEs. You know, I think the centre in particular has been very clear it wants SMEs to support the transformation work, and part of that needs to be talking to SMEs. So on that basis, shall I throw it your way first, Sally, and then Glyn, you can pick up.
Yeah. So the work with the squads and the sorry, my brain, the community stuff, roles like that, opportunities like that went out to the markets we're using like DOS and G-Cloud, so it's quite clear what we want from that service, or and what the outputs are, etc. So that's quite clear. I think that we're actually, and we use the framework as much as possible. However, we realise that that's actually quite limited, being able to use the frameworks in Wales. So we're actually kind of looking at how can we procure SME services to help support the centre, because we want to be able to use as many organisations in Wales as we can. But I think at the moment we, as I said, we're in planning phase. Our ambition is to kind of make it clear what we want to do and when we want to do it, and when we're looking at going out to market. So there's kind of an open and transparent pipeline of work that we want to do, and it will be varied. It will be, you know, do you have someone with agile skills, or we're looking for somebody who can support us around some org design, or we're looking for somebody who can help us understand is there a need for, should we be creating kind of certification on the courses that we're running in our digital skills and capability strategy. So the answer is, it's really helpful. I don't know at the moment, but when we do know, and when we're more clear about what it is that we're going to do in 21, 22 and going forward, then we'll be as open as we can about what sort of things we're looking for and what's going to be coming out to the market. But as I say, we've kind of finished this piece of work now, and now we're looking at what do we do next, and there'll be an impact as well on what the ministers want us to do, what priorities are. But we haven't published a plan yet, because we're at the minute we're looking at it and we're doing it.
That's great. Thanks, Sally. Glyn, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that work that Sally spoke about really important. And one thing I think, I suppose what comes first is also the culture, and we're having conversations in Welsh Government about, well, how do we have the resource to meet the organisation's needs, and how do we not get to a point where, well, we just don't have the capacity, we can't do it. So how can we flex and bring in the right skills, as Sally just said, help us with our problems that we need solving? And I think that's a really interesting cultural issue for the public sector, to think differently about how we bring in these skills, and not just think it has to be people in my team who are working on our infrastructure. So I think that's the challenge I want to take away and think about. And I think, Sally, I'm going to suggest an action for us now. I think there's probably something we can do around supplier workshops or supplier days down the road when we've got our thinking on this, and something we can think about in terms of the backlogs and the pipelines, about bringing some of that open to everybody to see what we're up to, but also to share the thinking around the playbook and so on.
I agree. I mean, it's really so health have got 75 million, we've got 5 million, there's education, there's millions, there's digital stuff happening in Wales, there's a lot happening. And so actually one of our concerns will be is, can we get enough suppliers, can we get enough people to help us with our plans? So it's just really critical that we develop and retain and maintain a good partnership relationship with the supplier community. We need to be working together on this. There's loads that needs to be done, and we want you to choose our work over some work somewhere else. So and that's also going to be part of us sort of selling ourselves as, sorry, I've got a new puppy, you can hear him. So it is about building a really good, proper, open relationship with the supplier community. That's serious. I mean, and we've been talking. There's something that Evan, myself, Glyn, and Sam are. Okay, how do we do this? How do we make this work? So,
thank you, Sally. And just tying that back in actually a bit wider into the digital strategy itself. The digital skills bit, Glyn. I think the strategy talks about that being actually far wider than just education or just within the public sector itself. It's like, how do we build skills and capability within Wales and the workforce? And how do we make sure that the next, well, Steve's SME, but the next SME that comes along has the right skills that Wales is going to need in the future? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so obviously, the as I mentioned in the presentation, the strategy gives, I was looking at it earlier, and there's a lot of words on the diagram for skills, and that's because it is quite comprehensive in terms of the things it's covering. So you've got the digital competence framework in schools, and making sure that we are bringing up young people who are confident and digitally competent, so that they can then hopefully join the pipeline of digital skills to build the community we want, to provide those supporting skills. Then there is the sort of the post-16 skills, the apprenticeships we want to build up, and what the right approach for those is, to make sure that we've got the right skills framework in place to support all our needs, private and public sector. But you've also got the issues of competence and support for citizens, and we shouldn't forget that they're the people who are using the services we're providing, and the work that Digital Communities Wales are doing, trying to get out there and help people build their confidence, is really important. And I think we need to reflect on the pandemic in terms of that confidence issue, and understand where the barriers have been, because people of all demographics will have had different barriers in terms of the skills you need to do it. So I think it's quite broad, and I really welcome any thoughts anybody has here today on the actions they feel we should take, and where we may need to do more.
Thank you, Glyn, and thanks, Steve, for the question. We have 1 minute to go, so before you press mute again, Glyn, just as we finish off, I think it might be really helpful if you could just give a quick timeline around the digital strategy, and if anybody does have any input that they want to give off the back of today, what's the best way for them to do that, please?
Yeah, thanks, Victoria. So the timeline is basically my team, and some of them are on the line today, are working as hard as they can to digest the responses that have come in, think about the themes, bring together the work on the delivery plan with yourself. We will need to go to Cabinet in March at some stage and publish this before the election period starts. So, watch this space for the next 4 or 5 weeks. Then once that's out, hopefully with the delivery plan, we then want to continue this, because the world will change very quickly, and I think it's really important that we adapt the strategy and the delivery plan as the months and years go ahead. And hopefully what we've started over the last few months is a sense of community and engagement that maybe wasn't there before. So that's the broad timeline.
Thank you very much. And with that, we hit 5 o'clock directly. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much to Lee and Glyn and Sally for speaking and answering questions this afternoon. Thank you for everyone for your contributions. I can see that the chat has got a fair few links and things that people have added in. So please do take a look at that. And also when we publish the recording of this, that chat will be available on that as well, with the links for people to pick up from there. So thank you very much for joining us. The next of these sessions I mentioned before, I think, is going to be on skills and capability during the second week in March. So we'll be putting out some more information about that soon, and hope to see some of you at that as well. Thank you very much all for your time, and have a lovely evening. Good night.
Thank you. Cheers, everyone.